Creative asked if I'd like to do a review of their SoundBlaster AE-7 sound card. I was happy to accept as I'm a huge sound enthusiast. I have thousands upon thousands of dollars worth of sound equipment in my home, so I jumped on the opportunity to try a new piece of equipment out. The sound card comes with a headphone output that can be extended to the audio control module. This module is just a convenient extension for your desktop and comes with volume control and a mic input. It doesn't do any other processing or anything, it's just for convenience. Installation of the sound card is simple. You'll need an available PCI Express slot to plug it into. Just line it up and stick it in. I can't believe I'm saying this, but it is 2024 after all, so make sure your PC is turned off when you install it. There is no connection on the card to plug the front panel audio jack into. This is because Creative assumes you'll be plugging headphones into the audio control module and not the front of your computer. I was worried to make this review using a Windows 11 PC, as this is an old card now, and I was concerned with compatibility. I had fears that I'd be riddled with bugs and driver issues, but the installation went flawlessly. Windows recognized it immediately. I opened up Chrome and searched what the AE-7's manual told me to search in order to download the driver and the Creative Command software. The software you don't need, but in my opinion, you definitely do want to use to get the most out of this card. The software installed and runs without issues. There are a lot of different configurations to use this card with. You can use headphones, which I'll be using. You can use an old school set of analog PC speakers like the Logitech Z906 or the Klipsch Pro Media. You can even use analog 2.1 or 5.1 speakers connected to a home theater receiver. If you have that, that's what I'll also be using, as that's one of my main ways of listening to PC audio. You can even use the card to package up the audio and send it out digitally using an optical cable. But then of course you'll need a downstream DAC and amp and you'll be bypassing the DAC. I'm not going to be using optical, so I'm not really going to be talking about it anymore. I'm only going to be using the analog connections because that's how you get the most out of your sound card. I want to be able to use the onboard DAC on the card and the Creative software. If you're sending your audio out through USB, whether it's to an external headphone DAC amp or to a USB headset, or to a set of USB speakers like what SteelSeries, Razer, and other companies offer, you are not using the sound card. It is being completely bypassed. Do not buy a sound card if you're using USB audio out of your computer. Now, do you need a sound card in 2024? No. I'm not going to sit here and say you do and try to push a product on you when motherboards have pretty good integrated audio as it is, and a lot of people are using USB audio. Sound cards are a nice to have type of component for most people. For some people like me, an audio snob, which is what I've been called, requires some type of high fidelity DAC, headphone amp, processing, equalization, etc. After using such high-end equipment for so many years, to go back to motherboard audio is like going back to a Honda Civic after driving a BMW for years. I mean, the Civic gets the job done and they make some pretty nice sporty Civics nowadays, but it's still a Civic, and the Beamer, like the dedicated sound card, is a lot more fun and enjoyable. The AE-7 uses the ESS 9018 DAC, which is found in a lot of other components in this price range, like the external audio engine D1 that I have. I like the D1, but the issue I have with external sound cards like this is the lack of software to fine-tune the audio. This is my favorite part of the Creative, hands down. Being able to adjust the 10-band EQ right in Command Center is what makes it for me. I can get the perfect bass output for what I like depending on what I'm listening to or what I'm playing. I found the AE-7 to be a bit on the bright side. In terms of mid-range, equalization took care of that for me. My headphones are fairly high-end. They're the Sennheiser HD 650s. They require good amplification to get the most out of them. When using the 650s with the motherboard audio, the sound was okay. It lacked bass, and at higher volumes, the sound just started to fall apart, becoming muddy and thin sounding. When I plugged it into the AE-7, oh baby, it became louder, fuller at lower volumes. And at higher volumes where the onboard audio just fell apart, the SoundBlaster just kept the juice flowing. Sound is subjective and it's hard for me to explain what it's like. The onboard audio sounds narrow at loud volumes and thin, as I already mentioned. It's kind of like getting hit with a stream of water from a hose, whereas the AE-7 was like getting hit with waves of water going all around me, encompassing me. And if I'm trying to get wet, I want to get wet. The AE-7 made my headphones sound wider and fuller. It's awesome. I was even hearing the imperfections of the audio recordings in my media. When listening with my headphones using the onboard, I could hear a bit of background noise while at high volumes, a little bit of hiss. When using the AE-7, it was eliminated. I'm actually very pleasantly surprised by how quiet the background is when at high volumes using the AE-7 on my headphones. My speakers, like my headphones, are also very high-end and require a good DAC and amplification and good processing to get the most out of them. When using speakers with an analog connection, the sound card does all the digital to analog converting and all the processing, but it still needs amplification. That's where my receiver comes in. If you're using PC speakers like the Logitech Z906 or the Klipsch Pro Media, those sets have a built-in amp. Just a reminder, if you're using USB speakers, you're not using the sound card. Rather, the built-in sound card inside the speaker set. Don't buy a sound card if you're using USB audio. Once again, I noticed an improvement of the AE-7 over the onboard on my speakers. Louder, cleaner, crispier, fuller, and the software made it exactly how I like it. When I play games, I need good sound or I'm not gonna play. Sound is at least 50% of the experience for me, maybe more. Playing Cyberpunk, I found the AE-7 to sound tighter and the bass clearer than the onboard audio. The different things happening in the game were distinct and separate from each other. They were all separate sound events, whereas the onboard audio, the sound all kind of blended together. I noticed this a lot more over time. At first, it seems like the motherboard audio can keep up with the AE-7, but going back to the onboard after using the AE-7 for a long time is where you notice how good the AE-7 is. It was better on the AE-7, but by how much? Kind of hard to tell, maybe 10, 20%, maybe not even that much as I'm just biased and trying to sense every little detail I hear. Playing around with the different effects for games depending on the type of game you're playing was useful, sort of, but I got tired of it. I definitely don't think you should buy this card if you're getting it just for the gaming effects, if that's all you're buying it for. The build quality of the AE-7 is impeccable. I wasn't getting any noticeable interference, sound artifacts at all. It's just built so well. The SoundBlaster beat the onboard audio and the Audio Engine D1 in everything, and it has much better headphone amp than my $1,600 home theater receiver. Now, should you get it? I can't decide that for you. You have to be a certain type of person for it. I'll never tell somebody to buy it just because I like it. Sound cards are a relic of the past, there's no denying it. The AE-7 prides itself for being a hardware accelerated audio solution, meaning the sound card does the heavy lifting when it does sound work, which in turn takes the load off the CPU, giving the CPU more resources for other tasks. In the past, this was a big deal, but CPUs are so powerful today and can handle sound duties easily. I wouldn't recommend buying a sound card just for the fact that it's hardware accelerated audio and that the sound card's doing all the work where it frees up the PC for other things. I don't think it's worth it if that's all you're buying it for. Get it if you want a product that's built well and gives better overall sound. Louder, cleaner. There's just so many different solutions out there that are good, and there are still useful applications for sound cards today, and they are still better than onboard audio. But like most audio equipment, there are diminishing returns. Is it worth the extra money for a subjective increase in performance? Will your ears even notice the difference? Well, if you're using high-end audio, then yes, in my opinion. If I was using a cheap pair of headphones, a sound card is moot as it's only going to sound as good as the cheap headphones do. The cheap headphones would bottleneck the card. There are a lot of options out there if you're looking for good PC sound. I like the SoundBlaster. Full disclosure, I'm a simp for dedicated sound cards. I always have been, and I've always been a fan of Creative Labs. They're not paying me for this or anything, I'm just sharing what I love. I like the connection options of the sound card and of course the software. If you have a really good pair of analog headphones, I definitely recommend getting a proper DAC and amp if you don't have one. There's many options out there, external or internal sound cards. Creative is a great choice. I'll be using this for a while, I'm sure. I guess I should see if Creative is expecting it back from me.